let's talk about the difference between bitterness in beer and hoppy beer, and really what IBU means in a beer, because I feel like that's kind of confusing sometimes for people. So kind of talk me through that.
So we start with IBU. So IBU is International Bittering Units. So it's a calculation and a measure of how bitter, or how much alpha acid is being isomerized from the hops in the beer. And that's bitterness, right? That is often confused with hoppiness, which hoppiness is hop flavor. Two separate things. For example, this New England style IPA is very hoppy, not very bitter.
Right.
People need to understand the difference there, and generally when people say they don't like hoppy beers, they're saying they don't like the bitterness of an IPA. But if you give them a pale ale that has tons of hop notes, hop aroma, hop flavor, they probably like that because they like those citrus, those fruit notes. So people often confuse the bitterness versus hop flavor, and that's the biggest difference.
Why would you think people assume bitterness means hops?
Because historically, hops are associated with IPA, which by the definition of the style is a more bitter beer because it has more hops added.
And hops are providing the bitterness. You get the bitterness from the hops. It's a matter of when you add the hops to the process and in the amount and the type.
Well, there are a number of factors that can affect how you feel about what you're tasting. Taste is entirely subjective. It's a personal experience. What I'm tasting and what you are tasting are very different, even if we've got the same beer in front of us, because lots of things can affect it. So in the interest of bitterness, if it's a high alcohol beer, for example, a double IPA, those generally have higher IBU ratings, but may not, which you would think would make them more bitter. And technically, according to the measurement of the International Bittering Unit, they do, but the International Bittering Unit isn't measuring what people's perception is. The higher alcohol content of a double IPA adds a sweetness that comes from the alcohol, which reduces the amount of perceived bitterness. So what may be at the super high bitter range as far as the calculation of IBU goes, what people are tasting won't taste as bitter because it has that other flavor to counteract it.
Makes sense.
So to go further on that, so when we're designing a beer, right, we're taking all that into account. We know it's going to come out to a very high bittering IBU calculation or even measurement, but we know it's 9% alcohol. We know we're adding extra crystal malts that are going to leave behind extra sugar. That's all going to balance against the bitterness, against the alcohol, and create this flavor that may not seem 100 IBUs or 80 IBUs or whatever that measurement is. So it's a balancing game, and it's all about balancing those several aspects of the beer to create the perception we want a person to have when they drink the beer. So a customer should not solely pay attention to IBUs. I know because IPAs are such a big thing, people are locked on IBUs, and they know, okay, if it's over 50 IBUs, I'm not going to like it because I just don't like bitter beers. But we made an Imperial Stout that was 62 IBUs last year, right? And
didn't taste bitter.
Right, but because it was such a big-bodied and 8+% alcohol, the bitterness was more pale ale level of probably 30, 40 maybe at most. So it's when we're designing a beer, we take all that into account, and the consumer just needs to understand how all those different aspects and pieces of the beer play together.
Yeah, the difference between perception and measurement. Your senses play off each other. They play off what you just had to eat. Whether the guy sitting next to you smells a little funny. Sorry about that. They all play into your taste experience, and those signals are always mixed when they're going to your brain. So they're going to be your perception is going to be mixed. The same beer may taste different to you 2 times in the same day because of you went out and had lunch, or you taste it just after tasting that other beer, but then you have a piece of bread or a cracker that's going to cleanse your palate, and you taste it again and it tastes different. It's not going to be drastically different, but it will taste different because you've got a different perception of it.